So I wanted to cover today, what is the difference really between training with a private training institute versus an industry leader like ourselves or myself, Jenna at Elevate. And so the difference would be the one is a government regulated school that will hire on an instructor to teach the program. They are not operating a business. They don't have any experience usually in the industry. Their instructor will have an amount of experience in the industry, but this is not their specialty. So usually they will offer a lot of different courses and adapt their government regulations to this course to make it kind of standardized. So then there's also training with an industry leader, and an industry leader would be someone who has a business, who has proven results in the industry, who has lived this life, who has had a lot of experience with using these programs in the field and teaching people and getting results. And so a lot of different ways of approaching here. Not to say that the instructor from a private training institute hasn't been through that, but we'll go through that through this whole video. I want to unpack it all from my perspective, because this has been something that I've kind of battled with for the last 2 years. I really was dedicated to rolling out these programs in a specific way that I felt comfortable with, that I felt brought the most value. And it's taken me this long to really feel comfortable launching them to the public. And we have been trying these out internally for the last 2 years, really successfully training people through the studio and really putting these programs to test. So I did think for a while that the best way, the most professional way to roll out these programs to the public would be through a private training institute. I did look at getting us approved and all that stuff. And you know, you want to do the best thing for your business. You want to look the most professional, but you also want to service your client the most. Really, what comes down to is what you can do for your client and what your client can do when they get out of your program and the value you can bring to them. So creating these programs, that was my number one concern. Basically, there's a bunch of different things that would be beneficial to going with private training institute. You could get access to student loans. So that means you get money that you don't have, money that's a little bit easier to maintain, right? Like a credit that's not a higher interest rate, like a credit card that you might finance a course otherwise with, which can be great for some people. But for other people, that's just a really bad strategy too, because when you don't have a fire under your butt, you are not motivated to like hustle the same way you are if you have that 15% interest rate hanging over your head to pay off that course. If you have to like interest-free loan for like a while, you're probably not going to even think, oh, like you have time to do all these other things besides pay off this loan. But when you have that credit card hanging over your head, you got to get that pedal to the metal. So that is another thing that I think is really motivating and not necessarily a negative thing about financing your education through industry leader versus private training institute personally, because it really does pay to have some motivation, and that can be that was great motivation for me, I can tell you. So I assume it would be very motivating for a lot of you too, versus if I had that 0% loan instead of financing my education as a lash artist, I probably would not have been as motivated to get my butt in gear. We have looked at this route of going through the private training institute. I would have loved to partner with someone if it would have been a collaboration that would have resulted in the best situation for my students. But on researching, basically I would have to mark up my course 40% when it's already insured and proven and tested for a couple years with great success. So obviously that does not bring a lot of value just to go through in there and be checking off the boxes of liability boxes and legislation and like government hoops to be going through that don't even have anything to do with our industry's regulations. So in terms of our program, I made the call that it is not in our students' best interest to be attached or affiliated with private training institute. Collaborations are great when they lead to a win-win situation. And in the instance of a situation where you already have something that is proven and is getting results, and you are the industry leader who has developed it for your clients, and it's already following insurance and government regulations, it just doesn't make sense to partner with someone who needs to mark up a course by 40%-ish to be able to satisfy their own liability. So that was the deciding factor for me. When I do look at putting these courses together, I want to provide the best value at the least expensive price for my students. And it means that I have to make the best choices for the program. And so even though it would look more prestigious potentially to be partnered and have that private training institute endorse us, it does not serve the students and it does not serve the course, and it's not going to improve the results of the course, in my opinion. So that's why we have went the other way. And also, if you're looking at the perspective of me as an instructor, so if I break down my time that I'm putting into this course, my time is very valuable and I have to weigh it. It comes at the sacrifice of availability of myself to my clients and my current staff in the studio. So I can't just be giving away my time. Time is valuable. And so if I were to look at doing something like this, it would be either that I would have to discount my time by 40%, which I'm already giving a rate that is, if I break down my time, it is such a great deal, especially my online training program, up to 6 months of unlimited access to myself. I'm basically at your beck and call online to make sure that your success is pretty much guaranteed. If you put the work in, you are going to kill it in this program. So I just can't be discounting my time that much. So I would caution you too, when you are training with someone, make sure you're training with someone who is giving you the same attention and that you're going to have access to someone who is actually an industry leader who's on the forefront of this. And one of those signs that they are an industry leader is that their time is valuable because they all have a steady clientele, they have a studio, or they were working somewhere, or they're in the industry otherwise engaged. And they have to definitely weigh their time, the sacrifice of time versus the benefit of being away from the studio. And I think we all love, on some level, bringing up the new generation. I definitely cannot wait to be able to access volume and mega volume lash extensions in my market. I would love for someone to please stick with it, and I promise you it will be worth it, and I'll be one of your best clients. But so even though we love training and we love seeing people succeed, we still have a limited amount of time. We still have to spend time with our families and have fun and do our own self-care and be able to fit the training in and stuff like that. So we definitely can't be just taking on roles where we're expected to discount ourselves by such a drastic amount or add that much without creating value for our clients or our students into a product that we have developed and are ready to provide to someone. So same thing with, we get asked a lot also about like endorsements. So companies like Nala have a lot of respect for them. It's basically just like a company that decided that they were going to regulate the market and put some standardization, and there are some things out there that shouldn't be there for sure. But as a student, you can also decide, and you can look at their standards and decide if the course you're looking at does weigh up to that. These certification programs or like standardizations, they're private companies that have they've made these for themselves. And basically it's a lot of money to also be a part of those. And they do sometimes make rules that not all studios agree with. Like for myself, I do not agree with the rule specifically about mandatory glove usage in the studio in all instances. I do think that it is the right call in a lot of different instances, especially if you're dealing with bloodborne pathogens, 100%. But some instances, actually, you can be causing more cross-contamination by using gloves than if you were to properly clean your hands and have the proper sanitization that way. Those certifications for courses, you might feel more comfortable that way, but there's also another part of it. The other part of it is sometimes you just have to trust the reputation of the instructor that you are learning under. Because if they are maintaining a studio that is successful, that is like the best endorsement I think that they can give for you to be able to learn how to run a successful studio if you want to, or work in a successful studio, or even have a home-based studio that is going to be successful. Because even if someone holds a certification like NALA and they've never done these things, how are they going to teach you how to do them? So I would challenge you, look more at the content of the course, look at the resume of your instructor and the quality of the students that have come out, and let that be your judge. I would say don't hesitate to put, if you are going to do this, if you're actually going to do this using a student loan, I think is a lot less encouraging and will contribute to your success a lot less than if you do put it on a credit card, because that motivation is real. Yeah, if it depends on how you look at it. I know it can look a little bit scarier, and some people who aren't educated about the industry might feel safer going with Private Training Institute because it just seems like a little safety blanket that has been created by the government of like, this is going to be okay and something you can trust. But in reality, it's not always a good situation either. And I've had a lot of students who've come out of multiple different private training institutes who have Lash programs, some of them aesthetics programs that are a year and like over 10 grand. And they come out and they're still asking to be retrained because they don't feel confident in these services. And that is not okay in my books. I think like also when you're dealing with the accountability from us business that is independent and an industry leader, there is a lot more onus on that independent business that's an industry leader to continue its reputation of being an industry leader. And how do you continue being an industry leader? Well, you have to provide results. You do not get that way by pumping out people who don't know what they're doing and don't feel confident and did not learn what they needed to learn from your course. So yeah, I would just caution you in that way. Make your own decision, of course. And some things that I'm saying might not jive with you and it might not be the right thing for you. But this is just my perspective and why we decided not to go through a private training institute or some other safety program versus like relying on suggestions from our insurance company, testing out our programs for years before we launched them to the public in our studio, making sure that we were able to do that internally and stand behind our certification process and our training process through doing it ourselves in the studio and having success that way, instead of going and getting a random certification program from another company that would add extra cost to our program and potentially not any extra value because we already have a program that's working awesome. There's just so much to consider when you're switching to a new career or you're thinking about making a big life choice like a Lash course. So I wonder, are there any other things that you have questions about? Because I would love to know. Please leave it down below in the comments or DM me on Instagram at elevatelash.ca. I would love to talk to you about it. If we do post your idea for a video, I'll send you a special gift. So check out the next video for some more info.